Here's how I'm combining the power of dividend-paying stocks as well as options trading to expedite my wealth building and retirement income. Let me show you. Yo, what is going on, premium chasers? I hope you're having a God-blessed day today. Every single person that comments down below is going to get my early retirement guide, the 5 income streams I plan to use to create a retirement income and build my wealth. Before that, if you want that full ebook, just drop a comment down below on today's video. And while you're down there, hit that like button and that subscribe button. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Pete, and you can head over to onlypeterpru.com or optionsellerschool.com to check out some of my broker statements. But guys, today we're going to be talking about how to combine the power of dividend-paying stocks and options trading, because I am absolutely sick of arguing with people on TikTok that are trying to be dividend investors, right? Meaning they're trying to get as much money as they humanly possibly can into dividend-paying stocks and to live off dividends. A lot of them don't know this additional double dip dividend strategy that I'm calling it now, being able to essentially manufacture an additional monthly or weekly dividend from a stock. It is absolutely insane that most people have no idea this even exists. So tell your friends. All right, let's go over to the shoulder. Let's pick out one of my personal favorite dividend-paying stocks is Procter & Gamble, okay? Now, Procter & Gamble is currently trading around 151, and we currently have a dividend of about, let's just call it around 3%. We'll just say around 3%, a little less obviously, around 2.75, whatever, right? We have a dividend that around 3% per year that we're making with Procter & Gamble. Listen, I'm not good at math, folks. I'm not good at math. But the amount of money and the amount of shares you would need in Procter & Gamble to live off 3%. And I mean, even if we go, listen, you know what, guys? Because some of you are going to be like, well, Pete, you know what? I'm going after, I'm doing the Starwoods, bro. I'm doing the Starwoods where I'm getting like a 9% dividend. Guys, listen, these dividends, just like premium, it ain't free, fam. It ain't free. You're taking on massive risk. And if that stock continues to plummet or is plummeting, right, your dividends are hardly making an absolute difference for you, okay? So here's kind of my strategy to do how I do combine the dividend with options trading. I stick to boring dividend payers. Colgate, right? Procter & Gamble, right? Kimberly-Clark, right? We know where we see that name all the time. I know the boys do, right? But with that said, right, I stick to these boring stocks that do pay around 3 to 4%. Usually I try to be between 3 to 4% a yearly dividend. That's what I'm usually aiming for. Now, in addition to that dividend, which is just the icing on the cake, what I'm doing is I am selling options on a weekly basis. Okay, on these. Now, we can do them weekly, we could do them bi-weekly, we could do it 3 months, you could do them quarterly. It doesn't matter. This is a strategy that you can make whatever you want. That's what's beautiful about it. We're not glued to charts, right? I love the dividend investors out there. You know why? Because they lazy like me, right? We just want to collect that passive income, right? While we're still working full time, we're spending time with our family, we're doing hobbies, we're prioritizing our faith and health, whatever, right? So for me, I'm a lazy investor in that regard, right? I don't want to be drawing on candlesticks, fam. I'm not doing that, right? But with that said, this additional strategy you're going to see isn't going to take much of your time whatsoever. It's really designed to complement your life, and for me, going to be one of my primary sources of income during my retirement years. So let me show you, right? We got our dividend payer. Pick your favorite one. You could do it with everyone. I'm just going to use Procter PG as our example here today, okay? And I'll go into some more of the more advanced stuff in just a minute. I just want to show you what's possible here. So I'm just going to type PG here, and I'm on Robinhood, right? And I'm going to go over to the trade options section. And now what I'm saying is I'm going to be a seller. I'm never a buyer. I don't buy options. Hardly, literally maybe like once a year, if that. I really try to stick to my foundations that I have really set guidelines for myself, and I stick to them. I feel like I had to do that, right? For me personally, like I have very strict guidelines for options trading now, because I've lost a lot of money over the years that I just don't want to make the same mistakes again. I get FOMO feelings too, but then I just go back to my framework, my guidelines, and I stick to them, right? Stick to my goals, my personal targets, right? And I feel like every time I go into like these other sketchy buying option strategies, I always end up losing money. Call me, I'm not smart enough, whatever. Totally comfortable saying that, right? I'm not smart enough for that, but I am smart enough for this strategy, and it works very well for me, right? So what I like to do is I'm going to click sell a put, okay? Now, there are 2 things to this strategy. All right, actually, let's do sell call first. So that's going to make more sense for you, right? So let's say we own 100 shares of Procter & Gamble or any other dividend payer out there. right? You're collecting your dividend. Maybe you're even doing like a realty income. You're collecting a monthly income check, one of my favorite dividend payers, right, as well, right? But what we can do here is we can select a date, right, that we'd be willing to maybe sell our 100 shares. All right, so just bear with me here. So I'm just going to do a 30-day one, and we can go over the weeklies in a moment. Just 30 days for our example here, because I do think for most beginners, you're better off just going and starting at like, starting 30 to 45 days out just to kind of get the hang of things. Now, this is the options chain, and all I'm saying here is on November 7th at close, I'm willing to sell my 100 shares of PG. That's all I'm saying. Now I get to name my price too. I get to name the price that I'd be willing to sell my 100 shares. Now, obviously, we don't have too many options here, pun intended, right? You could see here the 165, we'd collect $28 of premium. If we say 160, we'd collect $84 of premium. And 155, we collect $208 of premium. So if I open up this 208 for this 155, I will collect $208 of premium from an options buyer. That's where that money is coming from, okay? Now, results vary. These are just numbers I'm seeing at my screen at the time of me recording this. So next thing I'm going to do is I always put everything into my calculators. Okay, and my calculators are free for you. They are in my Facebook group. Join us, network with other people. It's a vibe in there. The link will be in the description. So I'm collecting $208 right here. So I'm collecting 208. Now, what is my strike of the option? That's what I'm willing to sell my 100 shares for. That is 155 here. Okay, so I'm going to put 155 as my strike of option. My purchase strike price is what is my cost basis of my shares? Because this strategy, you may end up having to sell your shares. More on that in just a minute, and I'll cover that, how to lessen your chances of assignment actually having to sell your shares. But let me just get through this thought. So we'll just say 150 is your average cost, right? Just around, just so the numbers aren't too. Let's just say you own 100 shares of PG around $150, right? So we will toss this into our purchase strike price, right? 150, right? And here's what the trade looks like. So we are getting a 1.39% return on our collateral. How am I calculating this number? I'm taking $208 and just dividing that by $15,000. That $15,000 represents your 100 shares of PG, right? 150 cost dollars average, right? Times 100 shares, right? That's the way it is. It always got to be 100 shares. One contract is 100 shares, as you're seeing right here, right? One contract is equal to 100 shares. Always. That's just the rules. You could do multiple contracts if you want. If you have 2, 3, 5, thousands of shares, you could do that on multiple contracts. Okay. So with that said, right, we have our purchase strike price of 150, and then we divide our 208 divided by the 15,000. That gives us the 1.39% premium or collateral return. That's a pretty nice little dividend to get in a month, don't you think? Right? Way better than 4% or 2 or 3% or 2.77% a year, if you ask me. Right? Layering this on top of your dividend payers. I hope the light bulb's clicking off. Drop the amens in a comment if it is, right? So with that said, right, a 1.39% return on our collateral here, right, that we are collecting. Now, I like to look at the full trade in case I do sell, so I would profit an additional $500 if I had to sell my 100 shares for a total profit, including the premium, is 708 for a 4.72% return if I end up selling my shares. Let's walk through the risks, though, because this is very, very important to understand, okay? First and foremost, if at the 7th at close, right, Procter & Gamble is selling under $155. It's still trading around 155 or for 154, 151, 145, anything under 155. That's your contract will expire worthless, meaning that you're not having to sell your shares. You're not going to sell your shares. Your shares will be returned back to you. They're not going to be collateralized anymore, right? And you're returned back to you. Now that premium, that $200 that you collected, right, you're giving that up front. When you execute the trade, you're giving that up front, right? The second thing that can happen is that, let's say, and this is the biggest risk, right, is that your upside is capped, right? So let's say on the 7th, Procter & Gamble is trading at like 156, 160, 165, right? Anything above 155, you're on the hook now to actually sell your shares at $155. Okay, that's a huge risk that you need to be made aware of. For me, though, I'm just going to speak about my personal experience and how I treat option selling. I treat it like a business. You probably never heard of somebody say that before, but I treat option selling like a business. I'm not going to be upset if I have to sell my shares that I got off PG. Right? I'm not going to be upset about that. Now, with that said, some of you really don't want to sell your shares. There are options. ways. There's primarily two. We could do something called rolling, right? As we get to November 7th, we are able to essentially roll our position by paying a little bit of that $208 that we got. Is rolling good? Is rolling bad? It depends on who you ask. It's kind of just kicking the can down the road, in my opinion, oftentimes. But it's okay because oftentimes, right, let's say we roll this position out, we might be able to go from 155 to 160, saying, hey, you know what? Let's push this out another, a month, and then we're going to get to potentially sell our shares for a higher price. We have to pay a little bit of that premium back, but it makes sense because if we end up having to sell them, right, we're going to get more appreciation that's worth it to us, or we may not even end up having to sell them at all. So you can do rolling. Rolling is an option, okay? With that said, right, you can also close your positions early. What does that mean? Well, let's say we did open this position here, right? And Procter & Gamble actually did drop. It continued to drop to 140s or whatever. Well, your chances of hitting the 155 become a lot less likely. And what happens is you can pay back a little bit of this premium again to close out your contract. Now, why would you close out your contract early? Well, if you close out your contract early, right, meaning you gave a little bit of your premium back, your shares are returned back to you, you ended up losing a little bit of that premium that you collected, but now your shares, aren't getting having a risk of being sold essentially at that point, right? But here's my challenge to you as you dive into this world of option selling is, for me, most of the time with my covered calls, I'm either just going to roll them out or I'm just going to let them go to expiration and just sell them or not sell them. The reason for that is a lot of people close out their covered call positions early, but then they have nothing to do with their shares. For example, let's say PG did drop down to 135 or something like that. Well, we're not going to be able to do any sort of covered call if our cost basis is $150, right? Because these 155s, they're going to look like this: zero premium on any of these. Like, look, if I want to sell at 170, there's no open interest or volume on these at all, right? There's nothing. You're not getting anything right there, right? So if it drops down to 135, you're just going to be stuck holding the shares that you have as a cost basis of 150. You're going to end up holding them until it recovers a bit. So in my opinion, I'm like, well, why not just let it go to expiration so I could capture the full amount of premium? Guys, if you want to learn more about this strategy and especially learn more about how you can do this in 30 minutes a week and potentially join an incredible mastermind community filled with option sellers, both new people and veterans alike, and you're a non-toxic person, you're financially stable, because as you see, this takes money to make money with option selling, click the first link in the description of today's video just for learning more about the Ark Options Strategy, right? How we can combine 5 sources of income into one simple weekly strategy, right? You're going to get my full trade log here that you can download for yourself. Plus, you'll learn about our mastermind and mentorship program, because if you made it this far in this video, I would love to get to know you a little bit more. So click that first link in the description of today's video, guys. Remember, sell options, collect premiums, repeat. I'll see y'all tomorrow.